Hi, this is Josh Mears at DonorDirect.com. Today we're going to talk about how to create reports for DonorStudio. Now DonorStudio uses SQL Server reporting services to generate reports. And as with all reporting tools, SQL Server reporting services has two main jobs. One is to get data, and the other is to display that data in a format that's reader friendly. And so if you take a look at our Subversion repository here, we go to the trunk, you see that it's divided into two branches, the report definitions and the stored procedures. This is the data and this is the display. Reporting services uses a file format called .rdl, or report definition language, and that .rdl file is an XML file that explains to the processor where to find data and how to display that data. And you access these files using Visual Studio. So let's take a look. Here's account annual summary.rdl. You can see it's got a nice table. It has some data sets that are explaining where to get data from and allowing it to be used. If we click inside here and then jump over, we can see the actual XML. So in general, the .rdl file is the display tool for the data. Now, it has to be able to find the data to display it. And so the way we do that is with a shared data source. And if we double click on that, you see that it's got a SQL Server instance and an initial catalog to connect to, and then if you go over here you can put credentials to log on. And so this project is going to log on to a SQL Server in order to get data back, and we use a proxy account to do that. Now there are two ways to get data into the .rdl, or to access it via report. The first way is via stored procedure. So we see we've got a data set name, and we have a stored procedure called rpt_account annual summary that accesses the data. Now we're going to use that for all main processing because stored procedures are fast, efficient, safe ways of accessing data. However, for little queries, we can run inline SQL commands. Notice we just have a select statement that this is going to run as an ad hoc query. We use that a lot for drop-down lists for parameters and that kind of thing. So right here is how we display the data. But in our source control we also have, if we go back to trunk, we also have .sql files, which are stored procedures, and these are how we access data. So those stored procedures are accessed by the report through the shared data source, which gives login information and allows the report to access the SQL Server. As long as we're looking at the repository, it's good to note that all of these stored procedures and all of the .rdl files are organized under solutions. So if we look at our SQL solution, we'll notice that it's got several, 14 to be exact, projects, and these are the exact same 14 projects, 13 projects that exist in Visual Studio. These projects represent the categories, or which represent the modules in DonorStudio that the reports are classified under. So we have account reports with things like account annual summary, account feedback, analysis reports, which are where we can analyze source codes, we can analyze events, etc., etc. Inventory reports, which are, we can find back ordered products and all these kinds of things. So projects represent categories of reports, and they're exactly the same in Visual Studio solution and the SQL Server solution. And so that is the basic overview of how reports work in SQL Server reporting services. The .rdo file is the display mechanism. It can access stored procedures or inline code to get data, and then we store any report specific stored procedures in our repository. Now, we can talk about deployment really briefly. When we deploy reports, we have to make sure that the stored procedures that the report is going to call exist on the SQL Server. We have to make sure that the data source points to the right SQL Server and has a login name that has access to the stored procedures and the tables. But the .rdo file itself is deployed to the reporting services server, which is normally addressed at http://database name /report server, and that will allow you to upload files. So for us, it is http://ds/sql1reports. And eventually we get to the report manager, and this is where we can upload reports, create data sources, and that's a brief overview of SQL Server reporting services for DonorStudio.